fear through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Disciples of Ed here on the Always Next Year Podcast Network. A season wrap-up, kind of, well, really more talking about the offseason that is to come for the Philadelphia Flyers. We're recording this just after a couple days after the conclusion of the Stanley Cup playoffs, with the Tampa Bay Lightning taking home their second Stanley Cup trophy in team history. I'm your host, Rob, joined tonight by Steve. How you doing, Steve?
Not so bad, and you?
Doing just fine. And also by Borg. How you doing, Borg?
Doing well, guys. Hope everyone's doing well. Excited to talk some hockey.
Absolutely. Always good to talk hockey here on the Disciples of Ed. And we've got some big things coming our way for the Flyers offseason. They have a little over $6 million in cap space. They got six roster spots that need to be filled. And they've got some names who were the RFAs. They got the season. Myers is an RFA. Nolan Patrick is an RFA. Also hitting the books as UFAs, Brian Elliott, Tyler Pitlick, Derek Grant, Nate Thompson. So as I mentioned, 6 roster spots to fill, a little over $6.23 million in cap to be exact to spend to fill those 6 spots. And we presume that at least a couple of those 6 names that I mentioned will be back. But guys, and Steve, I'll start with you. What's your outlook for the Flyers this offseason? How do you think they go about spending that $6 million? Of the 6 guys, we talked about this a little bit on our last show, but of those 6 guys, who do you think comes back? And of the ones who don't come back, how do you think the Flyers go about replacing them?
Well, out of the 6 UFAs, I think Elliott is very likely, as long as he takes yet another discount on like a 1-year deal. If not, they did just sign Lyon, so maybe we could have a Hart and Lyon tandem, which doesn't really make you very optimistic for the backup, because I'm not a huge Lyon fan. I know Lehigh Valley loves him to death, but I just not sure. He's like a quad A guy to me. Tyler Pitlick, I would love to see re-signed. Hopefully it works with the cap. We're probably, unfortunately, we're gonna have to trade if we want to actually go kind of make a splash in free agency, which I don't think we actually need, with Lindbaum going to be able to play the full year this year. Patrick hopefully is healthy, and then he could solidify that third line spot, and then really all you need after that, because third line center is probably the biggest hole, and the fourth line can be filled with our guys coming up from the Phantoms. Twarynski Bunneman was able to. Laczynski, he's going to be there in camp. I think Brent Flair did say that they expect Wade Allison, Tanner Laczynski, and he mentioned another name that I can't remember.
He'll be Rupshoff because he's killing it overseas. I don't know if it was German, maybe.
Yeah, good. I'm really high on him, and I hope that he can finally break through and, come out, at least start fourth line center and work his way up to show that he can be the third line center, because I know he's got a good 2-way game. So that is the hope.
That's why he could definitely be fourth line.
Yeah, but it's going to be a lot of internal options, which I'm a fan of. Hextall set us up for this to where, when, contracts need to be given out and then you kind of are pressed against the cap again, you're not exactly in cap hell because you have all these prospects that can come in, hopefully step up and just produce. So I think it's going to be kind of a quiet off season, but let's see what happens with Ghost. If he gets traded, then it opens up a world of possibilities, basically.
Yeah, and that's something we'll talk about in a little bit here. That's a big impending thing, the situation with Ghost. But Steve, I do agree with you. I believe that it's going to be a relatively quiet offseason. I think the main focus is going to be bringing back Phil Myers and maybe even focusing on some of the contracts that are going to be up after the season. Maybe locking up Scott Lawton long term, maybe getting a deal done with Raffle, maybe getting a deal done with Travis Sanheim. That might be a priority this offseason as well. So we'll certainly see where the team looks to go here. Bork, do you have any ideas of how this might go with the guys who are going to hit the books, and any of them you think might be back, and the ones who won't be back? Do you have any ideas of how the team will go about replacing them?
I believe Steve said it all very well. The one thing, I'm not huge on Lyon playing for the backup role. I think the Flyers one. I think he could be an NHL backup, but more of a 25 to like 30 game. Where I think the Flyers ideally, like Elliott, plays about mid 30s and up still. Would not like to overtax Hart at this point of his career and still ease him into playing upwards of like 50, 60, whatever such have you game. So with that being said, I don't think he really should be the backup because I don't think he's ready to. I don't think he's a 1A, 1B backup. I think he's more of a just like overall backup goalie that should just play when he has to type guy. And I don't think it's good to overtax Hart at this early.
They're gonna
in his
have
career.
to eventually, though.
Yeah, but if you can keep like Elliott, which is worked out just because the guys play good in front of Elliott, and everybody loves Elliott, or you could just get another. Like, there's a lot of good backups now, coming into this draft, or not draft, excuse me, free agency. So, that aren't going to cost you a crap ton of money. You could go that route as well. So I wouldn't overtax him yet. Maybe after this year, but that's why I wouldn't go with Lyon yet. I would keep him in organization. I agree with them doing that. He also, because he did come up big against a good team last year in Colorado. I just wouldn't expect him to be the 1A, 1B type goalie yet. I would expect him to be more. If you want to overtax Hart, then sure, have him as your backup because I think he can do fine at 25 and some change 30 max games. But if you don't want to have Hart play like 60 or up games yet, then I wouldn't have Lyon. I like Lyon more as a career backup that can come in when he has to, not 1B. But I see him as a good backup. I just don't see him. I would be surprised if he becomes a 1B. That's all. Um, but to replace, I mean, Pitlick, I think Steve hit on the head too. You got to find a way to keep him. And also, if we somehow find a suitor for Ghost, then I think it's set in stone. We'll keep Pitlick because whatever his salary goes up to, we'll be able to pay him even like mid twos if we got rid of Ghost and kind of feel okay with that. But I don't think we'll get paid necessarily that. I'm just saying if we did have to pay him mid twos or three, you could even do that with getting rid of Ghost. But he's the one move I think would be made. I don't consider that a big off season, so I'm with you guys in that because Ghost value's not high right now. So I don't consider moving him necessarily having a huge off season. I consider that now we have more money to play with. If, like you said before this podcast, Rob, we go to make moves during the season because, say, we go roll with Bunneman having the Rubtsovs of the world in, having the Shushkos of the world in, having Lazinskis and Terwinskis and all those guys, and one of them or a couple of them don't fully step up like we think they would already. And Sundin, we can't forget about Sundin. So that's the guys that I think freeing up ourselves of Gostisbehere would really help in case we need to get more help for our young guys, adding some veterans next year, like a Grant that was on the final year of his contract or people like that again. Unless
that's
if you
kind
just
of what
want
I
to
said to Rob before you got on. It's that we could replace these guys with our internal options, and then you're kind of set up to go make a bigger deadline acquisition, splash next year when we're right. Hopefully everything's going right again and we're in the hunt. But yeah, I think
that's why it's so tough with Ghost though too, because if you keep him and he seems to be moving quicker like he was after he cleaned out his other knee and actually looks adequate, he's not like he has the worst defensive contract by any stretch of today's market. So he could be a guy that would have value at the deadline, and then if you get another defenseman or a Zamula and Friedman are playing well, you're not going to need him that much, especially if he has some value and you get just another player on defense that you just have for, say, less money or whatever. If you need a fourth line or third line forward, whatever you need for Ghost of a younger guy at one of those positions, like a Goodrow-esque player, not him obviously, but someone comparable to like the type of player he is to bang people up a bit, you could do so. So I think it's a tough decision with Ghost. Do you move him now, or do you wait because his value could go up if they actually think he's able to move better and do more because of his knees both being cleaned out and so-called, which it looks like they are from watching stuff and all the crap, fixed. So.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see what they do with Ghost. Like we said, that's $4.5 million. He's got 3 years left on his deal. It's $4.5 million per season. So that's also not just clearing up cap space for this upcoming year. It's also clearing up cap space for the 2 years following that as well. And
I was curious though what you guys think of Myers. Do you think he'll get a Sanheim contract or the Flyers? Obviously, it depends what his camp wants. Like I was arguing with someone on Twitter about, but that's not important.
I think you go a little bit lower than Sanheim. Sanheim's coming in at 3.25. I could see Myers going maybe around or a little bit north.
Still give him 2 years, or do you try to see if he'll take? Because I think if you see if he'll take 3 or 4 years, he'll probably ask for like 3.25 because he knows he's going to be worth that. You know what I mean? In the latter years of his contract. Because if he takes 2.5 for 4 years, I would do a backflip and be very happy with Chuck Fletcher.
I had him pegged at 2 years, 2.5 in my cap friendly armchair GM, and I think that was still being kind of generous and hopeful. I think he gets around 3. He might get like the 5 year like $4 million kind of. I think we have to look at this like Ghost's contract extension when he signed and Sanheim's, because I think he's kind of a mix. He's shown the offensive capabilities and then especially defensively as well, kind of like Sanheim. So I think it'll end up being right in the middle, or maybe it's just a very, very short-term bridge, kind of like Sanheim, the 2 years, maybe like 2.5 to 3-ish. But I think Myers' contract is the biggest one to look out for, and I hope it's very team friendly, but that seems worth it right now. So
do you guys think that Myers' contract negotiations could in any way be impacted by the fact that Hag signed for a relatively low price tag of 1.6 per for the next 2 years?
I thought that was a perfect deal for a 6'7" guy.
Yeah, I thought that was a good deal. I mean, does Hag potentially, if he plays like a Graves X season, since we know how good he is at blocking shots, be worth more than 1.6? Sure, but I think for what he is, he took a good team-friendly deal, which I could see. It depends where Myers is at, because you got given a chance. You're the team that gave you a chance as an undrafted player. You're probably more prone to take a team-friendly deal, at least I would think, than most other people. Even you're going to credit the team that drafted you, obviously, but I think you would even give more credit to the team that gives you a chance when you're not drafted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, kind of wishful thinking, but he's played very, very well in his time in the NHL, short time in the NHL. But if he can get more, he's going to fight for it. Because I think he's got all the potential in the world. I think he could eventually, be on that top pair.
I'm just talking about if he does that 2-year deal like you were talking about. You might take a team-friendly deal, because 2-year 2.5 is still pretty team-friendly in my opinion.
I agree. I was going very, very wishful thinking.
Yeah, I think that somewhere between 2.25 and 2.5 might be reasonable for Myers. I think that Hag taking the contract that he did, I think it does do something to the other young defensemen that are out there, maybe kind of, makes it more of a team-friendly market for them. But who knows? I mean, I would love to. I think maybe it's a little bit wishful to hope that Myers will get a contract that's in the low 2s, but I think somewhere around 2.5 is probably pretty reasonable for him. But going back to what I was saying about Ghost before, 4.5 for the next 3 years, it's going to be it's going to be hard to sell a team on that 4.5, given that he is a defensive liability. So you're going to need to look for potential landing spots that are in need of offensive defensemen. And there's a few teams out there. A lot of analysts have mentioned the Edmonton Oilers as being in the mix there, Montreal potentially being up there. Do you guys have any teams or potential landing spots for Ghost in mind where they do need that offensive defenseman and the Flyers could get a pretty good haul in return for him? Bork, we'll start with you.
They don't need him, but he just sounds like a player that they would go after, so I'll just throw them on this list as a what the hell. Toronto's probably a team that would ask you about him just because they always like those guys that are pretty not too physical, aren't always the sharpest tools in the shed on the defensive end, to say the least, but can move the puck and move a little bit on their skates. So that's the main reason I would put Toronto in there. They seem to not value defense from their defensemen as much as they should. So
yeah, that's why they're out in the first round every year.
Don't make that Tyson Barrie mistake twice.
Yeah. So I wouldn't put it past Toronto. That's the reason I'm keeping them on the list, more to make fun of them and get trashed by whatever Maple Leafs fans potentially listen to this, but it is what it is. A team that he could fit in nicely to, we saw make a run all the way to the Cup. I can't remember if they would have the cap space to do it, but because they have guys that, one, obviously Pollock's leaving because he hates Dallas and basically said it was like playing for hell, even though they made the run to the Stanley Cup. So we know that dude ain't staying around. They could bury him. He's going to be on the third defensive line. So, like, you would think he would work with how good their defense is. They got a sick young defense mixed with some solid veterans they picked up down there. That was a team that just came to mind just because of how good their defense is. He would have no pressure playing there whatsoever. So that was a team that just came to mind while thinking it. And then a team, whenever anybody has offensive skill, Colorado goes, we're fixed this person. So I would think the Avalanche would be another team that have a chance. Because I thought the Kings originally, because they have money and they do, from reading a lot of stuff on them, from doing them for OT Heroics, they do believe they have a chance to vastly improve next year. Not necessarily make it, but improve. So if they think their rebuild's only 2 years away, if you think you can kind of retool and get Ghost going a little bit more and having Doughty there to help them do it, maybe you would consider that. That would be like the team that has the most cap space out of all the teams I mentioned.
Yeah, that's certainly an interesting idea that Ghost could end up there. There are a number of potential landing spots for him. There are more teams than we realize that are looking for that offensive defenseman, and he could be that guy for him. You just got to be willing, if you're one of those teams, to take the bad with the good and the fact that he's not great defensively. Steve, do you have any ideas of where you think Ghost could end up and what the Flyers could end up getting in return?
I didn't think of it until Bork mentioned it, but Dallas is actually probably a phenomenal fit for Ghost. Just depends what they do with their RFAs and their cap situation. But he really fits, the style that we saw in the playoffs from Dallas. Just basically going up and having no worries about, the rest of the team will get back. And you guys keep saying it goes to the defensive liability. I think the rumors of that demise are overblown. I think he can be foundationally sound. When he's with Provorov, he looks a lot better. I think it's really about which side he fits best on. I don't personally want to get rid of Ghost, but if we're looking at potential trade targets, I think I said Dallas. Vancouver might be a fine fit for him, it all depends on cap space. But Winnipeg, definitely. If you could get a package of Ghost and something for not Laine, I don't want Laine, especially after seeing that his contract's up after next year. Don't want to touch an extension on that. If you get him for maybe like Nick Ehlers, I would love that in some sort of package. That's, I think, would be best case scenario for possibly both teams. I know Winnipeg knows that Ehlers is very, very good talent, but they also need defensemen pretty badly, and maybe they could think that Ghost's offensive capabilities can kind of offset losing Ehlers. But that's my dream trade, is some sort of package of Ghost for Nikolaj Ehlers.
Winnipeg's definitely the team I thought would overpay too, because of what you said, how desperate they are. Like they just kind of need a guy that can move the puck and contribute on the power play. So I do definitely agree with you on that. But what are you trying to audition to be a politician? Grouping me with Rob saying I hate Ghost on defense. I never said I hate him on defense. I just never commented on it.
I don't. If I brought part of that, all I was saying was that the rumors of his defensive.
No, I'm just screwing with.
I'm the only one who explicitly stated being a defensive liability, and that's something that I've kind of harped on a number of shows here. So if there's anyone to blame for that, it's me. Boric did not say anything of the sort.
No, I've always loved Ghost. Yeah, I have a how Dan Orlovsky has a blind spot for Wentz. It's hard for me to truthfully comment on Ghost usually because I was obsessed with him from the jump with as soon as we got him out of Union, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that is correct.
When they won like 7-3 and he was a +7.
Yeah.
At the Wells Fargo Center, by the way.
Yes. But I think paired with the right guy, Ghost is good, and I think Ghost needs to be on the top power play unit, and I will always defend reasons to keep Shayne Gostisbehere. And I think he needs to be $4.5 million a year for 3 more years for him to be on a third unit and the third pair and the top power play unit. I think it's worth the money, and I think that he can come back. I just think Michel Therrien ruins everything about it.
I don't know about that, man.
Saw how he didn't get along with Pernell Carl Subban, so I just think Ghost is kind of like not quite Subban tier when Subban was, in his prime, but he still has that capability. You just need that booming power play point shot, and Ghost provides that. I love Provorov, but I just don't think he's fit for the top unit anymore. I think it should spread his ice time in all situations as they already do, and just give Ghost, kind of
top power play unit.
Yeah, you can even shelter him. If he's on the third pair, attempt to use him more in the offensive zone. And it can be done. It's just, will they do it? No, they'll probably trade him. So what the fuck does it matter what I say?
There's 2 guys that I think quickly should be on the power play unit too. One is Myers should get more time on there as he continues to develop, and 2 is I think as we see Zamula come in next year, I think he's going to be a kid that we see adjust pretty well and play pretty well, that by the second month of the season he'll probably be seeing some power play time. Friedman, I feel like, goes without mentioning because when he gets playing time, he's kind of just a guy that's sound and isn't anything special. But
yeah, you'll probably see him on the PK.
Exactly. Yeah, you see him on the PK sometimes on the power play because he can kind of pass the puck. Seem to learn a bit from Niskanen there, being able to make those chip passes that Niskanen makes. You saw him do that a couple of times. I just like how he keeps it simple. He definitely goes by that phrase, keep it simple, stupid. So I do like guys. You'd have to have a couple guys like that. And Hag grew into being like that and a physical version of a kind of keep it simple defenseman that as long as he limits his turnovers more so like he did this year, can definitely be a solid guy down there. So having those 2 potentially as your bottom pairing is actually not too bad of a bottom pairing in my eyes because Friedman can skate, Hag can bash people up, and also block a shots with the best of them. So
yeah, I wouldn't really want to see them like as the bottom pair unless injuries are, kind of forcing that. But I think if you're alternating them based on opponents, based on who's playing, better, I think alternating Robert Hag and Mark Friedman as your 6-7, I'm not against it. I actually think it's a pretty good idea because, you keep developing, the players like you mentioned earlier. So I think that's a good way, hey, you're a full-time NHLer. Show us what you got. If you don't have it, you're back down. We'll find someone else.
Yeah, well, it seems like we're doing that. Yeah, what were you saying? My bad.
It does seem like that's what we're doing, but you mentioned Myers getting power play, second unit time. I think they won't do it because it's thinking too big picture. They should try to ease him into it a little bit, but because I don't know if Niskanen will be back after next year. But having Sanheim and Myers, as that consistency as a pair, put them together on the PK and the power play, just all situations, and I think they'll really grow and develop the best chemistry possible, playing in all situations together and showing their defensive side, their offensive side, and then even strength.
100% agree.
Yeah. As far as Gostisbehere goes, I have an idea of where he could end up, and this is probably at the top of my list. I think the Florida Panthers, and it's not just because he's from Florida and he's, got that local joie de vivre or whatever you want to call it. I think that they could use an offensive defenseman. They've got some talent up front, and I think they just need to shore up the defensive end, at least in the power play. So they could be looking for an offensive defenseman like Gostisbehere. And, they don't have any current NHL level guys who would really be, a good return for the Flyers, but they got a few prospects here and there. I don't think they're too willing to part ways with Heponiemi, but if the Flyers can make that happen, I would love to see that. They could package some draft picks, maybe a second and third in there. So they do have something to offer that the Panthers do in return for Gostisbehere. I think that might be an interesting landing spot for him.
Yeah, I actually, now that I'm looking at it, I do agree, because I think Ghost playing with an Anton Strawman is kind of that defensive partner that would mesh well with Ghost. So brings out the best in Ghost, and if there is a trade to be had, there would probably be Henrik Borgstrom coming here and maybe a second or third. I think Borgstrom's kind of like on the out there.
Yeah.
Just all the rumors. So I think that's kind of like the base of a deal. If it gets done, who knows? New general manager who's already getting out of terrible contracts would be getting a good one in this scenario, because Ghost's contract is still
They
great.
also have a couple RFA defensemen, so if you want to take a chance on a Uyghur or like Josh Brown or at forward, I always botch his last name, but Dominic Toniato, however you say his name, and then Walmark, all those guys are RFAs, so they might, instead of signing them, just move them to you and give you a pick also potentially, and then you're just have to worry about signing them.
Yeah, Walmark is a guy who I'm kind of surprised that the Hurricanes were as quick to part ways with him as they were at the deadline. I thought he was a nice player for them, and I think maybe it wasn't the right situation for him down in Florida, but he could be a guy who could be a nice a bottom six forward if he does end up coming to Philly in a trade.
That was the Trocheck trade, right?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense then. Even if they're high on them, you're getting an actually like established player, who could score and play either center or wing. So kind of makes sense, but another guy to look out for in a potential trade.
Yeah, that's why I think if the Flyers could get him, that would be best, because he's flexible between center and wing, like you said, and so is, I'm just going to call him Dom because I botch his last name all the time.
Toninato?
Yeah, Toninato, yeah. That he can play wing or center as well. So if you get him with a pick, it fits into the Flyers loving those versatile players that are not just locked into being so comfortable at just one position.
Yeah, and we're also looking at, for Gostisbehere, maybe he's the kind of player who would maybe thrive in a situation where there's a little bit less pressure, not playing in a big hockey market like Philadelphia, going down to a place like Florida where there's a little bit less pressure to win, a little bit less, fans being on top of you for every little mistake that you make. That might be exactly what he needs to thrive as a player. So it could be something that works out for both sides there.
Yeah, that's a good pull, but you definitely hometown boy. Like it.
All right, so there's been other rumors swirling around as well. And Steve, you mentioned before we started recording the show that article by Elliot Friedman mentioning the Flyers being a potential landing spot for Patrick Laine. And Steve, how seriously do you take that rumor? And how does it make you feel about the potential of Laine coming to Philadelphia?
It is a potential rumor, and you can never really discredit whatever Elliot Friedman's posting. He mentioned the Kings and the Flyers, but he also said that he wasn't sure that either team would be able to offer, what the Jets actually want. I don't want anything to do with Laine because it's kind of like a one-year deal. He's going to need to get paid after it. He was in line to be getting a shit ton of money but he just kind of stopped producing. And I did see a rumor that, they're negotiating, like trying to like fix their relationship, the Jets and Laine. And apparently Laine just wants to purely play with Scheifele. So that's kind of interesting. but I could definitely see Line, like, I don't think he's going to come here. I could see him going to like Colorado. They have heaps of cap space, and they're able to pull a trigger to become more than just the like a 5-man forward team.
My God, that team will be filthy offensively if they can pull that
would
off.
Be filthy, but I would enjoy watching that as opposed to a team that seems like they're going to go after every one of their grandmother that hits the open market. In the Rangers, that I would just want to punch myself in the face if he goes for the Rangers, because that would not be enjoyable at all for me. I'd be very upset. Same with if he goes to Pittsburgh. So please stay away from both of those teams, Patrick.
They would really have to rank where cap wise, and I do, like I said earlier, I do think the Jets are really getting a hard on for defensemen.
Yeah, well, Tony D, I think, is basically gone. So, and they want an offensive defenseman, and he's a very good one. So I think you would probably put him in a deal, and then the Jets would have to worry about signing him as an RFA, and then you would kind of build from there, whatever they want in addition to Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah, I guess. Can I segue to the fucking Rangers for a second?
Go for it.
And how they just randomly if a trade is for future considerations, can we just edit the CBA and just make it say cap space? Because that's what it is. Future considerations, it's always been a joke. I mean, player to be named later is actually like an actual, like, you're actually getting a player. Future considerations, like, yeah, here's a 7th round pick 8 years later. But
good old PTB and now the former name of our Phillies podcast.
Yeah. But they trading away a 2nd round pick along with Stahl to Detroit. It makes complete sense. I can't argue the move for the Rangers. It's actually brilliant. They have enough draft picks. They finally get rid of Stahl, but they finally get rid of Stahl, who has been pretty much shit in front of Lundqvist, and then they buy out Lundqvist. And I think it was a very stupid move, and that's me saying this as a Flyers fan who hates the Rangers. I just would, if I were the Rangers, I would have kept Lundqvist for this one more year, and then just traded Georgiev for the best possible return, because I thought that made more sense. Lundqvist can then mentor Shesterkin for another year. Georgiev returns like a 2nd, 3rd round pick. So you kind of recoup what you traded away to get rid of Mark Stahl. I just thought it was a brilliant move, followed by a head scratching one, buying out your fucking legend of a goalie. It was mind boggling.
I would definitely take that.
I thought it was a little bit of a short-sighted move by them as well. So you're not alone in having that opinion.
My friend's a Rangers fan, and I'm telling him the logistics of my theory of what you actually do with your goaltending, quote unquote, conundrum. You just trade the guy who's not projected to be your starter, who's younger and can return more. Then you keep Lundqvist, the hero for your team, to kind of guide your next goalie in Shesterkin, and like, this is how it goes. This is what you'll expect. I felt like it wrote itself, but I'm no special advisor like I'd like to be, or GM. So who am I to say?
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that too. I was surprised, but I mean, I don't think Hank's going to get paid that much in his new contract. So I mean, let's say if we do get rid of Ghost and can't keep Elliott, is Hank a great mentor to Hart? Absolutely. So yeah, I would definitely take that legend as a backup 1B.
That'd be too much of a cap hit. He's not going to go that low.
I feel like it would be hilarious if he signed like a vet minimum deal with like Washington or us.
That would be sick if he did that.
Just to kind of fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could get somebody, a veteran you probably could get for cheap that I have always been indifferent about, but like as a player, but he pisses me off with how he plays the puck sometimes, is Mike Smith if you can't keep Elliott, because he's not going to get paid that much at the age of 38.
Oh, God, no. No.
Stay away
Smith
from
is
that.
terrifying with the fucking puck, and all I want is Carter Hart to get better when handling the puck. Smith is a no-no for me. I can't imagine Carter Hart seeing him do the shit that Mike Smith does and going, okay, I can try it, and then I'm having more heart attacks.
You're having more reasons to drink is what you're having.
Yeah, basically. Just another add to the Flyers drinking game that I have, which is just every time I get annoyed. But yes.
Yeah, because
that sounds like a hell of a drinking game. I'll have to try that
I
sometime.
used to have legitimate rules, and then one year in the Dave Haxel era, it was just so fucked. I was like, I literally tore it up. It was like every time I scoff or sigh or get annoyed.
Just drink.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Because in this
think
free
about it.
agency, I was going to say, though, there ain't too much to replace Elliott. That's why I think it's best to keep him, because Jimmy Howard is not a good veteran anymore. Corey Crawford's going to be too much of a cap hit also to have with what else you want to do. Aaron Dell you could get for cheap, but
That's the name that I was going to bring up.
Yeah. I mean, it's debatable if he's better than Elliott. And then Kincaid's another guy you could get for cheap. That's also debatable if he's
I
better.
wouldn't go Kincaid.
Yeah.
Maybe Mike Condon has that ridiculous $2.4 million contract ending. Maybe him, but I'm no fan of his. I feel like I'd rather just say fucking give Carter Hart 60 starts and line the rest.
Yeah, there's also Broussard and Domingue that are younger. Maybe if they can get going as backups.
I don't mind Domingue. I wouldn't mind him, but he's like another.
Domingue was Detroit last year, correct?
Vancouver, I think, wasn't he?
Was it Vancouver?
I don't know if it was this past year, but I do recall him being like a Devil and then a Lightning.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He was a Coyote to begin.
Well, the Lightning were McElhaney this year because McElhaney hoisted the cup. I remember him hoisting the. Yeah, he was Vancouver. He was the Lightning last year.
Yeah, but he's been kind of like a quad A guy. He's being bumped up and down, which we could feasibly have him on a very low cap. We could take
guys like that though. Yeah,
I mean,
we're like
a quad A guy that we already have that in our system in the form of Alex Lyon.
But the argument for it, in my opinion, is Dominguez sucking. You send him down, put him on waivers, call up Lyon, hope he's doing better, and then you have a goalie carousel, and Kirilis Domenko's coming up.
It also has a good battle. I think sometimes it's good to let guys battle it out. It sometimes makes each of them better. And the long runner has one rise above, so that's what I think it could also be a good argument for it also.
Yeah, personally, just looking at the names that I was going through, I would say that Aaron Dell is the one who stood out to me as a guy who's not too old and could give you good value for a relatively low cap hit. He's probably going to be right around 2, maybe a little bit below. But been a little bit up and down throughout his career, but put up some decent numbers for San Jose last year. And I think that he's a guy who could come in here, and if you want to play him, 25-ish games, maybe upper 20s, I think he could be more than sufficient in that role if they choose to go that route.
I agree, but also there's the unexpected out of left field kind of thing where there's going to be so much to a goalie carousel this offseason with the top UFAs and then other goalies potentially being on the move. I feel like there's a slight possibility of us trading a 6th or a 5th for just a backup guy who just doesn't fit in anymore because they know that they're going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a factor to be mindful of as well.
I'll look into it for the next show because it just hit me that it could be a thing when we're talking about when we eventually go talk about the draft.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else that you want to throw in terms of the Flyers for potential moves that could be on the horizon for this offseason or things that you would like to see them do?
I mean, if they want to solidify center, there's a couple guys that I wrote down. If you want to get just a couple cheap veterans at this point of their careers that aren't going to get anything near their 4 and 5 something contract, would just solidify your 4th line center position a little bit more is either Koivu if he wants to keep playing or Carl Soderberg are both guys that you just know that are going to be consistent on your 4th line. Craig Smith's another name I wrote down, but I think he'll get paid more than those two. So I don't know if he would fit into the cap as nicely because he's only 31 and still offers a bit more overall than Soderberg and Koivu do at this point. But both those guys are good 200-foot players and are good in the face-off circle, which I know the Flyers like, as well as Craig Smith, who's versatile playing center and wing like those other two. So that's why I wrote those names down.
Yeah, I could kind of see it. I mean, Mikko Koivu's the Chuck Fletcher connection in a way, but I think he's done, and I wouldn't pay him multi-million-dollars.
No, I don't think he's going to get paid more than like $1 million. That's why I think you could get him as a fourth liner.
Yeah. I wouldn't hate it just because I've loved him his whole career. He's always been like one of those underrated players on like my top tier list of favorites. Craig Smith, kind of iffy on, but I think he was like injured for a good majority of this year. I could be wrong, so maybe that affects him. Maybe he's only getting a 1-year deal, and I think 1-year deals are probably, if we're making a move, would be what we're going to go for because of the uncertainty with more RFAs. And
I think he was only injured for a bit because he played Rob's favorite amount of games. So I guess I'm sure he missed the amount of games that he played this season.
Well, talking about that, there's another guy who played that number of games, and I'm thinking maybe if the Flyers are able to get rid of Gostisbehere without, recouping that cap space that they're giving up in the trade, maybe Evgeny Dadonov. I mean, he put up some decent numbers. He had 25 goals, 47 points in 69 nice games for the Panthers last year. He's a UFA. Probably going to come in right around the 4-ish range in terms of salary cap.
I feel like he will only get that because of the flat cap, but he deserves more. He'll probably get like signed by maybe even like Colorado, who again has all that cap space and just can add to their already good foundation.
Yeah.
But
I agree. Colorado,
Colorado's going to have the best offseason, all right? They're just going to have the best offseason. I can see it now.
Yeah, Colorado just is stacking their team to just be better and better and turn into a damn dynasty.
Potentially. But I do kind of, I'm not against this Soderberg pickup. Again, 1-year deal, not too much. And this is, again, if we trade Ghosts. But an interesting move I think is potentially possible is trading JVR retained. I think that's something they might look into because it's $7 million. He's playing on your.
How much do you think we have to retain?
Probably 50%, but it would
50%
definitely improve like the return on it. But that's another thing, unless you're trading him to Detroit, just because they just need players.
Yeah. Or if for some damn reason LA wants him, like I said, who has a lot of cap space, but I don't think they're going to want JVR because they already have some bigger forwards that are a lot quicker than JVR. So what the hell would they want him for?
Yeah.
2 more names that I was looking through that could potentially fill bottom 6 roles if the Flyers have the cap space for it and they have a need. I just want you guys to kind of give me a yay or nay on these guys. And if you have any other names in mind, bring them up. But 2 names that I have in mind here are Connor Sherry, coming off the books from Pittsburgh, put up 23 points in 63 games, and also Chris Tierney with 37 points in 71 games, and both coming in right around the $3 million mark for their cap hit. How do you guys feel about either of those guys if the cap space is right for the Flyers, potentially being a bottom 6 forward there?
I'm sorry, who'd you say besides Sherry?
Chris Tierney.
Oh, yeah.
I've always liked Tierney, so I would be all for that.
Tierney, by the way, is an RFA, not a UFA.
Gotcha. Okay, then.
Yeah, I'd stay away.
Might be a little bit tough. Then I wouldn't do that. Then is Sherry a RFA or UFA?
Sherry is a UFA.
Okay, cool. Then him, I've always liked Sherry because he's one of those little guys that just pisses off the other team, has some skill, quick on his skates, good forechecker. It's just I don't know if he's going to get paid he might get paid a couple million, so you might have to want to pay him that more so than getting some of the guys that only get paid like 1 to 1.5. I think Sherry's probably the next tier up to like 1.5 to 2.2 or something. 2.5 highest type guy potentially with the flat cap still. So you would have to want to pay him that next tier. So it depends, but I do like Sherry.
Yeah, my feeling on Sherry is that he was always kind of a guy who the Penguins system made him look better than he really is, especially when he was on those cup-winning teams.
Mm-hmm. So, no, I agree with that, but that's why I wouldn't pay him that much. So that's why I said paying him 1.5 to 2 I'm okay with. I guess I wouldn't pay him anything more than $2 million though.
Yeah. I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch it at all.
Yeah. One more one, by the way. Eric
Tyler,
Holla.
that's a good one. Eric Holla, he's pretty decent. I just don't know if you can
Is
get him.
Holler UFA?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a UFA.
Oh,
I just-
crap. Oh, yeah.
It just depends on the price tag, you know. He got 275, so if
Yeah,
it's
he
lower
set
than
himself.
that and we have the space, then yeah, I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah, he set himself up pretty good. I think a guy you brought up earlier, Rob. I heard you say Nemesnikov earlier. I feel like I heard you say that name. He's a
I
UFA.
did.
Yeah, if we could go after him, I'm all for that as well. He had 17 goals, 14 apples to go with that crap. So yeah, I want him if we can go after him because he's also only 27. So that would be nice to get a 27-year-old UFA that still has potential as well. If you want to go for potential, because you could probably get him cheap if Minnesota doesn't keep him, you might be able to go for Galchenyuk, but I don't love Galchenyuk. It's just if you want to go for potential and you think you can get him going, I would be okay with it if you're not paying him a crap ton of money. So that's another. And then since he got bought out, I'll just say it. If we want to get him in the bottom six, you could bring Bobby Ryan home.
I've been trying to convince myself both ways on Bobby Ryan, and I've leaned towards fuck it if it's veteran minimum, do it. But it's so typical Flyers of being rumored to get a guy for so long, and then getting him when he's done. But maybe he could rejuvenate his career, you know. But
yeah, I think he can be a good
no more than $1 million.
Yeah, I think he could be a
minimum
good
is ideal.
bottom six now that he's sober. I think the big thing was he had to get his whole life back in check, and now that he got that, I think he'll be focused fully on hockey again. If he's back home too, near his home, I think that'll all but help. I think that'll be very helpful to him. I think he would probably fit in good here. I would envision here in Jersey probably being his top two destination. I would think he would probably want to come back home after just getting sober because I think they bought him out likely because he wanted to be bought out.
Yeah, and you know I don't think it costs them that many like real dollars, I guess. But also, I mean, NHL, you know, released the report that you know the Flyers would be high on this list, and me reading that interprets it as vet minimum, sure.
Oh yeah, 1 million I think would be my max too. 1-2 maybe because if you're giving him 1 year, if you have the room for a 1 year contract, it's not like paying a guy a little bit extra money for 1 year is ever going to hurt your ass because if you have the room for it, then you're fine. So if it's a 1 year contract, I'm fine going into like 1-2, 1-3 territory. But I don't think you would get more than 1 year for Bobby anyway. Because why would you give him more than 1 year yet? But
Yeah.
1 year, I'm all for. He's a bigger forward too. That we could use some guys that are a little bit bigger in our bottom six.
Kind of that scoring touch, as long as it's not completely gone.
Yeah,
It's
I think you could
potential.
put him on a second power play in front of the net because he actually still gets in front of the net, unlike some people.
Yeah.
So-
I have two more names. Just looking at it, bargain shopping here. Tomas Nosek from Vegas.
Solid player.
I loved what he did out there in Vegas, especially in that first year when they made that Stanley Cup run. Kind of came out of nowhere. So yeah, I would.
I feel like he was their
name
pick
here.
from Detroit, and I was kind of surprised, or maybe it was Carolina.
Was
One of those teams.
No, he wasn't Florida. Because Florida, they got a couple guys from. Because remember, they did a trade, right?
Yeah.
And then they still picked somebody from Florida. I don't think Nosek was the other, but for some reason in my head he was.
I think he was Detroit or Carolina, but regardless, Tyler Ennis is another name. I've always loved Tyler Ennis, and now he just keeps doing these one year cheap deals and just still produces points.
That's true.
Playing a bottom line role, so he's someone I would really look into for still cap strapped, and he's willing to take yet another 1 year cheap deal.
Nosek was the Red Wings, by the way.
Yeah, I was right.
He was the Rings. Okay. Congratulations, Steve.
I'm always right. Unfortunately, sometimes.
Steve, you have any more names there?
No, but I can quickly look at defensemen in case we don't want to trust Hagen.
One thing I noticed as I was looking through the names is it's a pretty good market this offseason for those kind of bottom six-ish forwards that if you want to find one who's relatively affordable, there's a large amount of names out there the Flyers could go towards.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, we could always bring up Michael Del Zotto.
Go down that fucking rabbit hole again.
Yeah, one guy
for like a year and a half.
True.
Hey,
One guy I definitely don't want to sign is Cody CC that can hit a bit because he's just I never thought he was that good. Yeah, I do not want to go after. Hey, we could bring back Ratko after trading him. UFA, bring him right back.
I just want to say that when Delzato was here, I met him. I shook the hand that was probably inside a porn star at one point.
There you go. Probably never
nice dude.
never watch that hand again.
We could unite families, and he's going to be a cheap defenseman you can get that will compete with Hag and Friedman for time. You could get TVR.
Yeah, and you know what? That's probably not like the worst move that can be made, but I don't know if he'll probably be around that like $2 million area, and I don't know if I'd rather be spending that on a defenseman issue.
That would just remind me too much of the Shem brothers being on the team. That was not a pleasant time.
Oh, so you just mean that once they leave, they'll win cups?
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Speaking of guys that win cups with, we didn't bring up the most obvious guy. If Tampa doesn't keep him, Pat Maroon fits in because he hits people. He kind of plays a Flyers type game. Like Steve said before the pod, he played for the Phantom before. I mean, he would fit in here. We need that type of guy, and it's almost guaranteed you're going to get to the cup with him on your squad. So because he fits to what we need, that's a guy we forgot to mention that I definitely would go after.
But if he holds grudges, he would never fucking come back here because he was traded away for very stupid reasons. There was like a locker room issue with the Phantoms. I think it was Maroon and a couple other players, and I don't know why, but I just remember this specifically. But because I was like, yeah, this guy should come up. He will be a great, he projects to be a very good bottom six guy. It was the time when we had 0 prospects, and I'm holding myself back from bringing up the best defensive one at the time, but I won't because Shayne called me out on it. But we had no prospects. We ended up like calling up fucking Zach Ronaldo, who's a piece of shit. But instead, we could have kept Patrick Maroon. He would have been much better player and better fit.
Trying to think who you're thinking of on defense. I have like 4 different names going through my head right now.
It's Eric Gustafsson.
Back-to-back shows with the Gus mention. I love it.
Shayne called me out on it. When he listened to the most recent show, he's like, "Do you just mention him every single fucking podcast?" I'm like, "Try to." This time I wasn't actually trying; it just happened.
He's great individual. I think I did. No, yeah, I did meet Gustafsson at the one carnival the one time I was there. Good dude, not the best player though, obviously.
Hey, he never got a chance. All right,
he scored a breakaway goal against Hank in a playoff game.
And I've lost my voice in that moment.
That was a huge play. I agree with that. That was one of those shattering plays when you're just like, holy crap, that dude just did that.
He also scored what I think ended up being the...
let's get off this subject. I'm going to I have a fucking conniption.
I was going to say, I think he scored what ended up being the game-winning goal in Game 6 against the Penguins in 2012.
I just remember the Rangers goal and Simmons had a hat-trick.
Yeah, I never disliked him. I was always a guy that gives people a chances for too long usually. Now, as a GM of a team in Philly, I wouldn't because I wouldn't want to get my ass kicked like half of the GMs in this city are right now. But, as a fan,
maybe 3 out of the 4?
It is 3 out of 4 right now.
But, exactly. But,
he deserved his chances. He did not deserve to get scratched for Hal fucking Gill.
No, but as a
live and die on this fucking thing. Sorry I brought it up somehow.
Definitely not, but I definitely, as a fan, give people a lot more length, especially when you signed them too early. Paul Holmgren with Oscars Bartulis.
I love Bartulis.
I love Bartulis too, but he signed him too quickly, so I gave him more length, and I'm like, I think this guy will pan out. Damn it. Like,
he was like 7th defenseman.
It just didn't work where I thought he would be at least like a Hag type dude that I would like that would just be consistent and take what's given to him, but that never panned out. And more of like a guy that we knew could move the puck a little bit better than Hag, just never panned out, and they signed him like when he was up for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah,
that's why I was like, what the hell are we signing this dude for already?
Bartulis was a great personality though. When we traded for Niskanen, he was just tweeting out like "fuck Matt Niskanen," and then you can go through his Twitter, and he just had so much shit talking on Matt Niskanen. Pretty funny.
That's too funny.
Yeah, Flyers know how to pick their personalities. Sometimes they don't know how to always pick the guys that they should lock up talent-wise, except for it seems like Fletcher's been great with his RFAs, and Hexie was good with it, but Holmgren and Bobby before him, not the best peachy keen guys in that department.
No, not at all.
All right, well, now that we're talking about Oscar Bartulis' anger towards Matt Niskanen, let's segue that into our Rage Room moment of the week. Boric, do you have anything in the past week that just pissed you off and made you want to go to the Wells Fargo Center Rage Room and just break all the shit in there?
Yeah, I very much so do. The son of a bitch Astros advancing after somehow the Twins still can't figure out a way to win a damn playoff game.
18 in a row.
Yeah, they lost 18 in a row. Now, I do love Kyle Tucker, so I did like seeing my boy Ball out there. But, the Astros, I guess, I have to give them congratulations as an underdog team because I always love underdog teams, but I did not want the underdog team to win, be the damn Astros. Like, if it could have been anyone else, that would be great. I don't care who else it was, literally just anybody else. That would have been great, but at least an underdog team won. That's fun to see sometimes. Do I think they're advanced past this round? Probably not, but they would have to continue to stay hot and just keep playing like they have no pressure on them as the underdog. So, and I feel like eventually they're going to go up against one of the juggernauts, and they would lose if they do not lose to the Athletics, who I think they're advanced to. But that pissed me off a bit. I was like, damn it, the Astros, of course, have to get the luck. Had a dribbler off the hands hit and a couple blue hits, and I mean, it happened, but congratulations to them. I have to live with it, and hopefully they don't get past the ALDS and they get out in the first round of the actual playoffs after the wild card round.
Nah, fuck the Astros.
Yeah, Marlins are winning the World Series. So it's already set in stone.
Man. They came out swinging today.
Listen, they've never lost a playoff series, so I put $5 on them to win the World Series to win 175. So I'm gonna be good.
And so now they will lose a playoff series. Now that you just said that,
You're not wrong.
Anyway, Steve, what's your Rage Room moment?
I want you
of
to
the
go
week?
first because it might change mine.
Okay, well, my Rage Room moment of the week is going back to Sunday. The fucking Eagles, man. Just everything about that game. Carson Wentz throwing the interceptions, playing like shit for the third game in a row. Doug Peterson electing to punt the ball as opposed to, I mean, you had 19 seconds left in overtime. Chances are, if you don't get it, if you could either kick the field goal, try the 64-yarder, which, by the way, Jake Elliott has the leg for. We've seen it when he hit that 61-yarder with about 6 yards to spare. You have a kicker who has the leg to hit from 64. If you don't want to go that way, you try to convert on fourth down. And if you don't, there's maybe 10 seconds left. And the Bengals would probably have to go about 20-ish yards to get in field goal range. I mean, come on. You start off the season 0-2. You don't want a tie. You don't play for the tie. You play for the fucking win against a terrible team like Cincinnati. Come on. I know that this is a Flyers podcast, and I'm getting off on an Eagles tangent here, but that just pissed me off.
Listen, you can always join the Chiefs side.
I've been tempted to over the past season or so, but yeah.
Yeah, just start focusing on them a little bit more, then you'll realize that, hey, Patrick Mahomes second is the new coming of quarterback Jesus.
Congratulations to Mr. Mahomes, by the way, on knocking up his girlfriend.
Oh, he did? Good for him. That's how he celebrated his fucking $500 million contract.
Yeah.
So my
He
Rage
also celebrated by buying part of freaking Royals.
Oh yeah, now he's gonna get a World Series when they eventually win one again.
Whenever they win one again, yeah.
It'll be so random like their most recent one was.
Pretty much.
My Rage Room is the fact that it's been 2 days since the Stanley Cup was won, and there have been hardly any moves. I need something. Like I keep scrolling on Twitter just hoping to see something. I'll be honest, I was half expecting me to just be scrolling and then just seeing Flyer sign Bobby Ryan just because, of course. I need shit to happen. I know the draft is, like a week and a half or so away, but I need shit to happen now. I need something to fucking distract me at work.
Well, luckily for you, Steve, because it's going to be an abbreviated offseason before the next season begins, it should be one of those off seasons where something's happening just about every day. So
Yeah,
I don't think
so
you'll
much
have too
insanity
many.
with goalies, and I need to I'm here for it. I need to see this shit happen.
Well, I don't think you're gonna have too many days like the past couple of days have gone. I think most of these days during the off season are going to be fairly active.
Yep, hopefully, better happen.
All right. Well, you guys got anything else you want to throw in before we wrap the show up?
I've had something this whole show, and I just can't remember it.
Save it for next time, man. Bork, you got anything? Bork, are you with us? Bork has left us early.
Yeah,
All right,
no,
so-
I got you. No, my thing wasn't working for unmuting on my mic for some reason, so it had to make me do it here because of this stupid technology. Anyway, my final thing was just I think I trust Fletcher, and I like the idea like Steve brought up earlier. I've always loved when you have a pretty good foundation of continuing to build up your inner foundation and giving guys chances that you've drafted and or picked up as undrafted guys that have good potential. So I do like that. And then adding in some veteran commodities like the names we mentioned this podcast. So I think the Flyers are going to make good moves, and this playoffs was really enjoyable, and I can't wait for there to start being an active offseason overall because I just love following, obviously, the Flyers first and foremost, but the overall sport as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a big offseason for the Flyers. That is for certain. Really, really could be the turning point. If they have a successful offseason, they already have all those young pieces in place. This could be a cup contender for years to come if they play their cards right. So hopefully Chuck Fletcher knows what he's doing here, and I trust him that he'll make the right moves.
Listen, I just convinced myself that probably doing no moves is the best move.
For that,
Bunneman, Laczynski, Torensky, Rubtsov, Linus Sandin.
Sundin, yeah.
We haven't even mentioned Morgan Frost at all this podcast. If he's able to come in, just prove that he can play center at a decent level in the NHL, then Flyers going to be fine. I prefer. It's risky, but it's just something I prefer. You have all these prospects, let them fucking play.
Yeah, a lot of that will be decided here in this offseason. Just hopefully everything goes the way that the Flyers needed to go to set this team up to be very successful in the future.
Yeah, everybody wants that fucking high scoring player, but they said Wade Allison is going to be playing NHL games this year, and he did nothing but score and get hurt, but nothing but score. So hopefully that can translate, as long as he's healthy. So it's just a lot of internal candidates to fix whatever issues that the whole fan base thinks are glaring.
Yeah,
well, whatever happens, it's going to be a really fun when they get going with assuming that there's a preseason, which there probably will be. That'll be really interesting hockey to watch at that point to see who they have up in camp and who projects to be on the active roster after that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be really interesting to see which direction this team goes in.
Yep.
Yeah, a thing I forgot to bring up because I'm an idiot and had it the whole podcast and wanted to remember to bring it up is a guy that we still have for next year at the minimum is Morin. And if he can stay healthy, I mean, you don't know what he can do maybe as a depth guy, seventh defenseman. I mean, we know he can beat the crap out of people. And if he can stay healthy, block shots and defend well. So that's more just the question there. And Allison also, I mean, I'm with you guys. He's going to become a fan favorite quickly if he can stay healthy because he plays a Flyers-esque type game too. He can score, but he's also a guy that can be a bitch to the other team too, which obviously we all love in Philadelphia.
He's also another ginger.
Yeah, I love those guys. Gingers unite.
But yeah, for Morin, AV did say that he's going to have to play AHL games, so he's got to prove it big real early with the Phantoms. So. Yeah. I have no trust in it. I hated the pick at the time, and I hope for the best, but I just don't see it happening. He'll probably become a UFA and then just become a very solid third pair defenseman on like some Western team.
Yeah, it's a shame what's happened to him with the injuries, though. They've really kind of stunted his development. So anyway, before we wrap up here, I just want to give a shout out. First off, to the band that's responsible for our intro outro music, the Jackdaws. You can find them online at www.thejackdolls.com. Also, they have a Patreon account at patreon.com/thejackdolls. They're a Celtic rock band, really good stuff. I love listening to them. You certainly will as well. Definitely check them out. Once again, the Jackdolls, www.thejackdolls.com or patreon.com/thejackdolls. Also want to give a shout out to Just Food. You can find them at 215-794-3663. Their store located in Buckingham Green, Buckingham, Pennsylvania, off of Route 202. Their owner, Asian Rob, a really good friend of the Always Next to Your Podcast network. Once again, 215-794-3663. That's 215-794-FOOD. Just Food, located in Buckingham, Pennsylvania. All the food options you could possibly ask for. Really excellent stuff. Check them out. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Disciples of Ed, and we'll be back with another one shortly.
And I used to be revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.